Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Welcome in, everybody. TGIF. Thank goodness it's Friday. We're getting ready for the weekend off from the NFL before the final weekend of the NFL season. The Chiefs getting ready for another Super Bowl against the San Francisco 49ers. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor here with you. Lots to get to today, as always. We'll be joined later this hour by the voice of the K-State Wildcats, Wyatt Thompson, to look ahead to the weekend, see what he has seen, and if the Cats can get things turned around and get back on a path to the NCAA tournament. We'll have that. Some other things, interesting stuff I pulled from the Shockers yesterday, sort of highlighting this up and down within game season of the Shockers. We'll get you ready for KU in the game of the weekend, I think, in college basketball against Houston. And we'll, of course, look ahead to the Super Bowl, all the other things happening around the sports world. Good morning, everybody. We'll give away some HTO today. We'll take your calls on the KFH hotline, 869-1240. Tommy, how are you today?
I'm good. Happy Groundhog's Day.
Yeah. Okay. So what do we have? Is it that, or is it Balder Snob Phil? Is that what I hear? Ted renamed the squirrel or the groundhog, whatever it is.
Yeah,
whatever
the woodchuck is.
Woodchuck, groundhog. What?
I thought it was a
prairie dog
or a possum.
Prairie dog.
Prairie dog Phil. That's our
Prairie
version
dog.
here in Kansas.
Yeah, prairie dog. I had to teach one of my kids what prairie dogging was the other day. They thought it was hilarious, as I do. I think it's really funny. So the critter there says more spring. I only listen to him when he says more spring. If he says more winter, I call it a hoax and like, this is so stupid. But when he predicts an early spring, I'm like, yeah, duh, of course.
Well, I'm not sure I've ever really known exactly what has to happen. Like, I get it mixed up. If he sees his shadow, I don't know what that means. If he doesn't, I don't know. I have no idea. But we go through it every single year. I feel like I should learn this at some point.
One of the things you do have to remember about this, though, one of our features, they were actually discussing the results, like statistically. And statistically, he is wrong about 60% of the time.
Yeah.
So whatever the folklore says it's supposed to be, just assume the opposite, and you're going to be right more often than not. So he didn't see his shadow, and that means an early spring. So we're probably not going to get an early spring. There's at least a 60% chance.
So the 40% then that he's right, we will again pretend is just the time that that he predicts an earlier spring, right? Is that acceptable? Is that fair?
I'm okay with that. It's fine with me.
I don't think there's anything you can say that makes it any less dumb. So, however you want to look at it.
If you want to get a rise out of a meteorologist, just ask them what they think about Punxsutawney Phil. By the way, they'll let you know. But yeah, early spring, the groundhog says so it shall be. And we will enjoy weather like we've had this week for a long time. We're going to get some rain this weekend, which will be nice. It's, the timing of it. I complained to our poor meteorologist. I'm like, guys, I love the rain. I know we need it, but I'm trying to run an iced tea shop here. Could we get that rain like on a Wednesday, please, and not on the weekends? But it'll rain out your weekend, but in a good way. We need it. And it, like for here, it could be like a drought busting rain. So we're looking forward to that this weekend as well. It's been beautiful weather this week. Does not feel like February 2nd. And I'm sure we'll get punched in the mouth by the winter again, one or two more times before we actually do get to the spring. But the groundhog says it will come soon, and we'll listen to him this time. Tommy, I was digging through some of the Shocker stuff yesterday, just trying to, kind of what we were talking about. Like, it feels like within so many games, we get both the ceiling and the floor, and it does bear itself out. So in a lot of the losses that we've seen, I pulled and I didn't even include Memphis here because it's not really fair, right? Memphis was, I know it was tight early, but in the Temple game, they had a 9-point lead with like 10.5 left to go in the first half. FAU, they had a 7-point lead with 12.5 left to go in the game. USF, they had a 4-point lead with 17 to go left in the game. ECU, they had a 3-point lead in the second half. Tulsa was the most egregious, of course. That lead dwindled, but it was still at 6 as we were getting toward the end, I think with about 6 minutes to go. All of these games within there have been those games where you felt like, they should have won. Again, probably not fair. Could have won is absolutely fair. And you'd like to get at least half of them, right? And so that's where, like, again, is it, it's like within games, you can be optimistic or pessimistic based on what you've seen. You see both the ceiling and the floor so often within an individual game. It is, I don't recall a team like that where you feel like the ceiling is so much higher than the floor and there's no consistency in either of them. Even within an individual game, like it's not like it's game to game, it's within a game.
Yeah, the trend is concerning about how they're not closing out games. And you just have to go back the other day to Tulsa to point that out. And there have been other examples, but I think what makes it so frustrating is that you have to kind of hold your breath. It doesn't matter if the team has an 11-point lead at halftime. It doesn't matter if they are in it and it's a 1-possession game with a couple of minutes to go. This team has shown that they have trouble closing out ball games. And until they can figure that part of it out, I don't care if they've got a double-digit lead. It's always going to make you a little bit nervous when you're playing any kind of conference opponent, because we've seen this Shocker basketball squad blow leads in multiple games this season. And so I don't exactly know what the fix is for that. I don't know if that's a mental thing, if it's, if you can point to one particular thing in the games themselves that they need to improve on. Maybe it's turnovers. I don't know exactly what it is that's been contributing every single game to them blowing those leads. But I do know that until that sort of thing is remedied, no lead is safe. And that makes it that much more nervous every time you take the court.
Yeah, look, I think that in-game adjustments are something that we have to pay attention to, right? In-game adjustments have to get better. I don't know. I can't recall. Again, like it is fascinating. I don't remember a team that does this so often within a game. And again, I do think it allows for some optimism when we talk about getting to the AAC tournament and making some noise. They have now shown that they can hang with anybody in the conference, right? The second half of Memphis, they were dominated. I mean, the second half against Tulsa, they were dominated too, I suppose. But yeah, you know what I mean? Like they have the ability to hang with anyone in the league. What does that mean? I mean, I think it means at an optimistic take, you can still give them a puncher's chance when you get to that point. What can we see between now and then to change it? I don't know. I probably, similar to what we're seeing now, consistency would be nice, obviously, but it's interesting. They've had a lot of leads late in games that they have lost, and that's a problem. But they have had leads late in games that they've lost. So it's like, well, that's good, I suppose. They up next will have Memphis, again, Saturday. This one's in Memphis tomorrow, noon. It's the big national window. Man, it would be nice for them to have a good showing in that one. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk a little K-State hoops with the voice of the Wildcats, Wyatt Thompson. They've got a big one. They're all big for K-State down the stretch here. They can't lose the one that they've got tomorrow. We'll talk to Wyatt about that and more next on Sports Stadium.
Get busy.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
Your new radio home for K-State Athletics, 97.5 and 1240 KFH. It's that time, Sports Daily, getting all the inside information on Kansas State. Let's go now to the voice of the Wildcats, Wyatt Thompson.
And glad to be here with Wyatt Thompson again on a Friday on Sports Daily. Wyatt, how are you this morning?
I'm doing very well. How about you guys?
I'm doing well. I'm curious to know what the vibe is right now around men's basketball. We want to get to some women's basketball too, but around men's basketball, the Cats on the outside looking in now, I'm fairly certain of the NCAA tournament. And we get to this situation with 10 left, I think, and 2 of them, including the one Saturday, are games that are not going to help their resume, certainly could hurt it. But there's a lot of pressure, I think, now on the Cats to win a lot of these games. And I guess my question to you is, are they in a position to do that right now?
Well, I think you could probably argue that both ways, right? And I don't know that any of us necessarily have the answer. I think that's still the goal, but there needs to be, some better and more consistent play to get there. And you're right, it's not an easy road. Everybody understands how good the Big 12 is these days. All you have to do is look at, 8 teams ranked, or, look at the net rankings, or, any of the other metrics. It's going to tell you that. Oklahoma State is a winnable game. And yet I don't think you can take it for granted. K-State's now lost 3 in a row for the first time under Jerome Tang. They struggled the other night mightily on the offensive end. And I know after the game, Coach said that, Wednesday was a mandatory day off. They practiced last night after the radio show, which was a little bit different. Practice again today briefly before a flight at 3:30 and then a 1 o'clock game on Saturday. So there isn't a lot of time necessarily to kind of try to correct some things, but they've got to figure some things out offensively. And I don't want to be too long-winded here, but everybody kind of saw what happened. Everybody's trapping K-State into the front court now, and they just haven't had a lot of good quality offense at all. Now, with that said, it isn't just being trapped there. I mean, they had some good shots early in the game the other night. They just didn't hit any. And I've said this all year long. I think at the end of the day, they're pretty good when everybody's playing their part, but they also need those big three, which would be Kaluma, Perry, and Cam to play well. And it was one out of the three against Oklahoma, and that followed a blowout loss at Houston and a very difficult loss midweek last week in Ames. So yeah, they're going to continue to fight, but it is a very interesting subject because to get to, with where they're at right now in the net and all of those kind of things and the other metrics, one would surmise that they'd probably have to win 9. I don't think they get in at 8 and 10. Do you? I just don't. I think they have to win 9 or more.
Yeah, I mean, probably. I think it honestly, I think it's going to matter more about the quality of wins. It's always so hard with the net because it doesn't matter, and we know this historically. It just does not matter. We always want to look at the Big 12 standings when we think about how many Big 12 teams get in, but they're telling us that they don't care as much about that. So, if you're telling me they get quality wins over BYU twice, let's say, and and they get a couple of wins or one against Kansas, and if it's some combination of these high end teams, right? If it's one against Kansas, if it's Iowa State at home, if it's 1 or 2 against BYU, and maybe it's TC, then I think it doesn't really matter the number of them. I think as much as where are they 500 or whatever, I think that's what it's going to be. Can they get enough high quality wins to catapult themselves up? Because the metrics haven't really liked them all year, even when they were at the top of the league.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very fair assessment and statement. I would augment it this way. Think back to last year, and I understand that they're different seasons, but K-State early in the league race went on the road, won a game in Austin, won a game at Waco, and then they put themselves in a position to play themselves out, not play themselves in. It's just kind of the opposite this time, don't you think? I mean, they need some of those games like what you're describing. If you look at most people that follow the game really pretty closely understand. I mean, I looked yesterday. You know where BYU is in the net as an example? 6.
Yeah.
Not 26 or 46, 6. So there's going to be plenty of opportunities. And it's so I totally agree with what you're saying. But I think what everybody would say that follows the Cats at all would say is this has been a team that has been pretty inconsistent, and you just concern yourself with, can they put some things together here as we start the month of February?
Following up with what you said a couple of moments ago, Wyatt, about the big three, I thought Porter Moser did a great job in the game against Oklahoma, limiting what Kaluma and Carter did in the game and really disrupting any kind of offensive flow from Kansas State. So for them to get that back and for them to be able to have good offensive outings from either 2 of the 3 of the big three or even all 3 of them, what do you think Kansas State has to do to try to make sure that doesn't happen again?
Well, this is going to sound like a little bit of an odd answer, but I think if you really seriously analyze the game the other night, and I'm going to repeat this, K-State had some good shots early. They just didn't make them. And I would tell you that part of the reason why I think Arthur struggled and Cam struggled was certainly Oklahoma and how they defended. But I also think if you look at it honestly, and I'm just being blunt here, K-State got almost nothing out of the 5-man position. Will McNair played one of his poorest games, not a lot out of Jarrell Colbert. That makes it most difficult. Cam didn't shoot the ball well, and he had 14 straight double-digit games. So, again, that's the thought that I keep, going to is that everybody has to at least play solid ball. You can't, they just don't have the depth and the explosion that they had a year ago. So your margin of error is much, much smaller. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does. It's just where are they going to find it? Right. We talk about these wins that they need.
Yeah.
I just that's where I get it. I've used the term a couple of times now. I think they probably are more like who we thought they were going into the season than like what they were when they started the Big 12 season. And so if we almost reassess our focus to, the just the talent on the floor that we thought they'd have or whatever, they're going to have to overplay or play above their means a little bit to go get these. Now, I won't discount their ability to do that because I think Jerome Tang and his staff have done an incredible job. So it's like, it'd be one thing if they were this really ultra talented team, maybe more like last year, right, when they have a couple All-Americans, versus this year where they don't have that. I mean, they just flat don't have that.
Well, I guess this one has hung with me for a while, and I'll say it here on your airwaves that Coach Tang talks a lot when I ask him about these really good teams at the top of the league, and the common denominator is that they usually have a very, very good point guard, and 2, a rim protector. And I don't necessarily think K-State has that right now. Tyler has had his ups and downs. He has not shot the ball this year like he has in past. I think in part, maybe it's just, a new system, a new style. I mean, everybody knows that K-State's trying to play a little bit quicker. And I don't want to lay it all on just 1 or 2 guys, and that's the easy probably way out. But again, the margin of error is smaller, and I think when you have the talent that K-State had last year, and I mean this sincerely, I think what made them special last year were those 2 kids that we always talk about. But what made them even better was a Desi Sills he wasn't the world's greatest shooter, but he did everything else great. Okay. Who's that guy this time? You know what I'm saying? I don't know that they necessarily have that either. And that's, it's just, sometimes you just have to be honest and kind of tell it like you see it, that they just don't have a Desi who can be a lockdown defender, who can get 3 or 4 steals, who, you know what I'm saying, can go out and get you, 5 points, 7 boards, 3 steals, whatever, one night and 15 the next. It's just, they don't have that guy right now. They just don't.
Wyatt, we talked about this last week.
At the rim too, by the way.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
We talked about this last week, and I know we talked about it before also. This team just sounded, that's just something that, they've struggled with, especially in Big 12 play. That's something that you think can be corrected as conference play rolls on, or is it something they're just going to have to compensate for?
Now, say the first part of that. I'm not sure I understood the question.
They get out rebounded, and they've struggled on the boards. And so is that something that is fixable moving forward, or are they going to have to compensate for that?
Well, if I'm being honest, I would say it's probably a little of both. I think they're really a decent rebounding team when it is in the forefront of their mind. If you remember when K-State was eliminated last year by FAU, it was mainly because of the rebounding. And I think this team is one too that has had moments where they've been pretty good, but when you're looking at the last 3 or 4 games, it has not been good enough. So that has to be a major focus. And that's I think the thing. You don't want to overreact. I learned a long time ago doing this that you're usually not as good as you think you are or as bad as you think you are when through the ups and downs of a long conference season. So I say that to say this. I think if you look when K-State has played well, as an example, Baylor at home, what did you get? Okay, against a pretty good and probably decent defensive team. Would you say that's accurate? The elite offensive team, but a decent defensive team. K-State played good offense in that game. Why? Well, they handled the pressure. They reversed the ball. They got paint touches. They didn't turn it over nearly as much, and got better shots. It isn't, you know what I mean? It's again, you can make it as complex or as simple as you want, but at the end of the day, that's you hit a couple, 2 or 3 shots early the other night. Maybe the game's totally different. You don't know. But when you go to the second media timeout and you haven't scored, that's pretty problematic. And yet they were still in the game. They were in the game at 51-44 and had just a horrible 4-minute stretch where they turned the ball over like 3 times. It's a 12-1 run, and you're done. They can't do that and win games in this league.
I'm confused. I'm not confused. I think that I've solidified what I think needs to happen. What I'm confused about is can it? And I think that's on this coaching staff. And I am honestly and legitimately excited about that challenge for them to see that and then throw it out. All right. So let's just look at the schedule. We can play a little. You can throw Oklahoma State and West Virginia out the window because those aren't wins that are going to help them. So BYU, you mentioned they're 6. It's a strange thing. Metrics are strange. Don't understand them, but they're 6, right, even despite 4 losses in the conference already. So you get 2 against BYU. You get 1 at home against TCU. You get Texas on the road. You get Cincinnati on the road, Kansas on the road, Kansas at home, and Iowa State. I think they're going to need to split with the Jayhawks. Can they win 2 against BYU? I don't know anything about BYU, Wyatt. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I don't know if you've looked at them yet. I think they can beat Texas. I think they can beat Texas. Texas has looked vulnerable. I think they can win at home against Iowa State. I think they can go on the road and win. I mean, I think it's all there. Like the optimist, take is there for them. They got to still go do it. But I think there are enough winnable games for them if they play their best basketball, which we've seen them play this year, for them to get in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you said a lot there, and I think that's the way you have to approach it. I will say this though too. I do think the game in Stillwater Saturday and the game here against West Virginia will be harder than most people perceive it to be. West Virginia is different now with Jesse Edwards back. They have that rim protector and scorer back that they've lacked all season long, or most of the season anyway, along with several other pieces. And when Oklahoma State was here before, K-State kind of struggled with their 4-man. Can they correct that a little bit? And can they avoid just really a poor start? That's the other thing we haven't talked a lot about. In the last 3 games, their starts have been just bad. I mean, that's just, you got to say it that way. They were down big early, like it was 41-29 at half in Ames, and fought back, tied the game 5 times. Never were really a part of the game in Houston, down 11-0 in the start. And then the start of the other night, it doesn't matter who you play or where you play. You can't do that. You just can't.
Wyatt, I want to ask. I want to ask you real quick about women's basketball. I know we're going to transition to that. The Wildcats, they fall on Wednesday to Oklahoma. Only the second loss of the season for the Wildcats. No Aoka Lee still. Is this a team that you think can still win a national championship?
Well, I think they're in the neighborhood. I do. And I'm thinking about this. You wouldn't know this, but I'm going to be doing one of their games coming up here because Brian will be traveling with baseball. And I'm so excited about it because they're so fun to watch with or without Aoka. I mean, yeah. And don't criticize me for that because this is a fabulous player and an All-American talent. Would you rather have her? Of course. But they've been pretty good without her. I mean, it's not a crime to lose in Norman. And I think what hurt them more than anything else, they played a solid game, but they turned the ball over a little bit too much. And that's going to – and OU hit shots. We go back to that thought too, right? Basketball's pretty good when you're hitting shots. So I think what I would say is the reason I think they can make a deep run, it's hard winning championships, but I think that they can make a deep run because with Aoka, they're legitimately 10 deep. And I think that's the thing that really stands out. Sundell is having a terrific year as their point guard. The Glenn twins have been solid. Gabby's good. Zy Walker, the young lady from Wichita Heights, has been a nice add, and she's got a ton of good basketball ahead of her. And I love Eliza Maupin's game and Sanchez's game. So they've got some really good talent. So, yeah, I'm excited about where they're at. And they have another tough one Sunday. I mean, they're at Texas. But, I'm looking – if I'm being honest here, I'm looking about, okay, let's say they don't win the game Sunday. I just hope people hang with them here because those are 2 hard places to play against the next probably 2 most talented teams in the league. And you got, you get Aoka back towards the end of the month and things could change very, very rapidly. This is I mean, this is a 2,000-point score and one of the best players to ever play here, maybe the best player to ever play here.
Yeah, I mean, look, you just get her.
They've had a lot of good ones here. Yeah.
You get her back and you take your chances in the tournament. I think the most important thing is obviously making sure she's fully healthy.
Right. No rushing it, and I don't think they will do that. Yeah.
How much fun is it to have that on campus right now? Because it looks like everybody's fully locked in and engaged appropriately to how good this team is. But I come from a place where women's basketball is a big deal. There were more fans usually at the women's games when I was in college at West Texas A&M than the men's, and it's great. And I know what it can do on campus, and I love that aspect to things. I imagine for even just the student body there, it's another awesome thing to be able to go do and support on whatever night it happens to be happening.
Well, I think people really got turned on by this team when they beat Iowa. That was a really big deal because even the most casual of basketball fans saw what Caitlin Clark was and did last year. And she was the talk of women's college basketball this season and continues to be. And they split with a team like that. And it kind of augments that, hey, pay attention, everybody. This group's pretty good. And then they blaze out to a 20-1 start and beat, some pretty good teams along the way. Beat North Carolina early and that kind of stuff. So in terms of here on campus, it's really been fun. You mentioned the students. They've been great, really, for both the men and the women. The men all season long, the women definitely since the Iowa game. And yet also, I think there are more people coming just, around town and around the area to watch this group, whether it's Wichita or Topeka, Kansas City, whatever it might be, just because it is such a great value ticket-wise and fun to watch. I mean, they're very fundamentally sound. They play really good basketball, and they're winning a bunch, and why not? I mean, I got back from the game the other day and drove by the arena, and they're playing, and I'm listening to it on the radio, and I'm like, wow, that is so cool to see this many cars in the east and west lots around Bramlage. It was awesome.
Wyatt, we appreciate it. So you guys will have the call. We'll have it beginning right at noon here against Oklahoma State on KFH. Got to have it. It's not one that's going to excite the metrics or do anything like that, but they can't let it slip away either. They got to get it done.
Yeah, and it's it's a quick turn too with OSU and Stillwater, and then Monday night Kansas here. So this is, and then we go to BYU a week from tomorrow. So pretty big. Not that they aren't all, but pretty big stretch of games here for sure.
Yeah, got to snap the streak. Can't let that one slip away. Wyatt will enjoy the call this weekend. Have a great day and have a good trip to Stillwater.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Good talking to you.
There goes Wyatt Thompson, voice of the K-State Wildcats. If you missed any of that, you can go back and listen for free on the Odyssey app. K-State men's basketball broadcasts are always available live for you here on 97.5 and 1240 KFH and on the Odyssey app. Tune in Saturday for the Wildcats in Stillwater against Oklahoma State, or simply download the Odyssey app and search for KFH at game time. Tommy and I will be back. Lots to get to today. We'll dig a little bit more back into Super Bowl prep, more chatter yesterday among some of the key Chiefs, what they had to say, what they were talking about. I'll tell you what I took away from Mahomes' sound yesterday when we returned.
KFH.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor, getting you ready for a Super Bowl. Now just, what are we, 8 days away? 9 days away. 9 days away. It's Friday, not Saturday. Getting ahead of myself here. This is a pretty critical week, but a week that's much quieter than next week will be, certainly. Some things standing out. Yesterday, Pat, I went through, and I did not listen to all of the Chiefs sound yesterday, but I did Patrick Mahomes. There's a little edge to him that's not normally seen. I could tell you that, like, from what I can tell, just in his mannerisms and everything. Like, that dude is locked in right now. He seems like a little angry or something. I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's there. I think it's there, and it's interesting, and probably not a good sign for the 49ers, but he does seem a little edgy right now. That's sort of the tone I took from yesterday's availability.
Yeah. No, and I think that part of that, the way that this season has played out for him, I think part of it is Patrick Mahomes is competitive. We've seen that on countless situations, countless times throughout his career, but it's partially the way that this season has played out. It has not been, as we all know, a perfect season for Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, and they've been doubted more than they ever have been. I've doubted them more than I ever have in Patrick Mahomes' career. I think a lot of people have suggested that, maybe he lost his step or whatever that might be for whatever reason. We've talked about it at length, and it's well documented. And here they are. They're competing for a world championship in back-to-back years. And if I were him, I'd be edgy too. I get it. I get, the naysayers are there, and they've morphed into the villains. They've morphed into the dynasty, and people want to see, and this is the way it always is. People want to see the team at the very top get knocked down a peg. And, I think that has to do with kind of why his attitude is the way it is.
There's no question. It's, he uses that, and you really can't fulfill your, prove the doubters wrong, told you so, storyline unless you win this game, right? Like, in reality, I think them getting to this point, despite some of the issues they faced this year, is pretty nice. I know I know Chiefs Kingdom has reached this point of Super Bowl or bust. I understand that, but the reality is it's pretty impressive that the Chiefs reached this point. But that doesn't matter now. You can look back at that in 3 years and say, yeah, that was pretty impressive back then when they did that. Remember when but no, right now, if you don't win it, it's, and that's, you hear that all the time. Like, I forget who it was just telling a story or recalling just how painful it was to lose a Super Bowl. And I think it was Mark Donovan actually on the Kingdom show here talking about when he was in Philadelphia, and like, as immediately after the game, it's like, we may never get back here again. Now, the Chiefs are in a little bit different position than that, but I get it. Joey Bosa running his mouth a little bit. Good for the Chiefs. Saying, yeah, or sorry, not Joey, Nick Bosa. He was asked about, the Chiefs tackles, the bookends, Donovan Smith and Juwan Taylor, and he basically just said they hold a lot. So there you go.
I mean, they do. They do.
He's not incorrect.
Juwan Taylor's the most penalized player in the NFL. So
he's talking about wrong. Like on film, like, what do you see out of him, all that kind of stuff. Like, okay, like they'll have something for him. I mean, that they will. They'll hear that. They'll process it. They'll put it away. They'll file it away. Travis Kelce will probably have something to say to him during the game, and that'll be incredible to watch. And that's just sort of what this becomes. Like, I think it's so relatable, honestly, because it's just like the rest of us are. Right? Like I shouldn't say all of us, but a lot of us, most of us, certainly me, right? Like, if I'm out there on the field and Nick Bosa goofs up, you better believe I'm going to have something to say about, they hold or whatever it is. Like, if he gets pancaked or something, like, yeah, you got to say something. You do. Listening to, Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes laughing it up on the Pat McAfee show about how they were so ready if Tucker missed a kick to get out there and say something. Like, yes, like when, whatever it is, playing beer league softball, like you're paying attention, and that's what I think, like, to me, is so enjoyable about the Chiefs, is because at least Kelsey and Mahomes, they're so relatable to the way the rest of us operate, right? When we're out there just talking a little trash and, filing stuff away and are ready to pounce on any opportunity to do it. I enjoy that part of it so much, and I'm so glad that Nick Bosa had that to say, because it just gives us another storyline to look at.
I know that you are a longtime professional wrestling fan, and don't you think that the Chiefs have leaned into this full heel turn? Especially with everything that has happened, like with Justin Tucker last week and all the things on the sideline from the regular season when they were so frustrated. Like, they know that they're the villains now. They know that people want to see them fall. And I think they're kind of leaning into it a little bit. They've completed that full-fledged heel turn. Tom Brady was the same way at the height of the Patriots dynasty. Like, they've kind of done that, I think.
So I think that they're more of the lovable bad guy, right? So I think people genuinely disliked Tom Brady far more than anyone genuinely dislikes Kelsey and Mahomes. Yeah, they're the villain, but they wear it well, and they're the popular villain, right? They're the early Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like, people are trying to paint them as the villain, yet you enjoy them so much, right? Like, and it's, at least that's what it appears to me. And it's hard for me too, because so I live in Chiefs Kingdom. Obviously, everybody loves the Chiefs, or most people do. And even then back home, when I talk to people, everybody loves the Chiefs because Patrick Mahomes went to Texas Tech. So I never feel the Chiefs. The only time I feel the heat is from, I've got some good friends that are big time 49ers fans. And because of the last Super Bowl, and now, of course, this one, they don't like the Chiefs at all. But it's not very many people when I run around. So I can't find the haters, and I guess on TV, like, you see analysts and stuff trying to dissect Mahomes. But we've been doing that since the beginning of time with football, right? We did that. We do that with everybody. Like, we always want the next thing. Who's going to be the next? Who's going to be the next? And I don't think it's just chatter either, because we didn't think there was going to be a next Brady, and we already have it. They played at the same time for a brief period of time. They played against each other in a big game or two. So I don't mind people trying to find the next one. The problem for them is Mahomes is very young still. Like, he could easily play another 10 or 12 years at a high level. And so while you're trying to find the next one, he's going to be at his peak. At least when you were trying to find the next Brady and Mahomes came along, it was at the very end of Brady. Now, Brady won another Super Bowl, but I don't know. I think they're the lovable bad guys. Like, this isn't LeBron James level hate. This isn't Tom Brady level hate, Kobe Bryant level hate. Like, these are the lovable bad guys. Does anybody really hate the Chiefs?
I think people hate what the Chiefs have become. I think people
they hate their success.
They hate the success. That's just natural, though. You've got a team that has a lot of success, and you're always rooting for the underdog. And when I don't have a dog in the fight, if I'm watching a Super Bowl or if I'm watching the World Series or whatever it is, I'm usually going to cheer for the team that was not expected to be there.
Sure.
Over the team that is always there to watch them, get to the top of the mountain. I will agree with you. The Chiefs as villains are different than, like, the Astros were villains. Everybody hates the Astros for genuine reasons. The Astros had a dynasty in the same way that the Chiefs have a dynasty. But the level of hate is entirely different, I think, between those two teams, where it's not like the Chiefs have done anything wrong. They just win a lot. They have a lot of fun while doing it. I think that when they struggled this season, a lot of people were ready to knock them off that mountain entirely. And I think it rubs people the wrong way that all they did was just win and find their way back to the Super Bowl.
The conspiracy theorists probably have a genuine, but I think there's a few reasons why it's hard to hate them to the same level some of the dynasty teams have been hated. We'll do that in the next hour. We got to take a quick break. 869-1240 on the way out of this hour. Let's give away some HTO, Jad. We'll do a free iced tea and a free Brewhouse coffee. The iced tea, more than 25 flavors available for you at any of the Wichita or Derby locations. The coffee available either at the East Wichita location or in Derby. Good luck. First caller to that KFH hotline will get that. We'll come back. We'll continue this conversation. How are the Chiefs perceived outside of Chiefs Kingdom? That's next on Sports Daily.
Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily, hour number 2. Congratulations to Jared for winning our HTO giveaway. We're chatting right now about the Chiefs and their maybe perception from around the country. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor here, Jed Chambers producing. So I do think they're the villains now of the NFL. I think you've got conspiracy theorists saying they get all the calls, even though they were like the most penalized team in football this year, which is interesting, and that the league wants them in. And yeah, I mean, I think I agree that the league wants them in with Taylor Swift and everything, but I don't think the league does anything to help them get there intentionally. Gary points out that if Kelsey keeps running his mouth to kickers and going on shows and cussing people out, the Chiefs will be more hated down the road. See, I actually think people like that, Gary. Like, I think one of the reasons for me, it may be the biggest, that I think it's harder for people to wrap their brains around the Chiefs as villains outside of the fact that they beat your team, right? That's always going to be the case. But it's because I feel like Mahomes and Kelsey are so relatable. And I feel like Andy Reid, you may not love Andy Reid, but he doesn't have the sort of personality. And he's like, he's like the big lovable teddy bear, even though he can get as grumpy as anybody, in his media availability or whatever. He doesn't show it the same way. Like he's sort of like the adorable NFL character, always has been. It's the mustache. It's the, self-deprecating hamburger jokes. It's like, whatever it is, like we appreciate him. And he's a brilliant offensive mind, and we appreciate that too. But Mahomes is relatable, man. Like, that's backyard football that we all grew up playing. That's trash talk that we all grew up watching. Like, he always does and says the right things. I don't remember a time where he says the wrong things. He had a couple of moments this year where he got on to officials, but like, that was such an outlier to what we've ever seen. And then Kelsey, when I say he's relatable, like, no, he's into like fashion and style and all that, and he's dating the world's biggest pop star. That's not relatable. But what's relatable is, like, he's ready to throw down. He's ready, like all those things where you're like, yeah, I've been there. I just think that's the part of it that makes it fun to watch them. Like, they always are entertaining us. And, Brady was like an underwear model, right? Like, he's a little, he's this really good looking guy, and he's on GQ, and maybe Kelsey is some of that, and maybe Mahomes wants to be some of that, and does get it, I guess. It does feel different to me. And the reality is, I think Brady's super relatable too. Like, he's a world-class beer chugger that, loves sports and all these other things. But I don't know. And maybe it's because I live in the middle of it. It has felt different to me, though, than like the Patriots. The Patriots, everybody hated the Patriots. They had the cheating scandals. They had all of that stuff. I just don't know how much people hate the Chiefs outside of their team actually playing against them.
I think they hate the success. You mentioned that before.
That's always going to be there. There's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, probably 5 years ago, when the Chiefs were the scrappy underdogs coming in, the unproven team trying to knock off Brady and Belichick. And there was a D Ford penalty that kept the Chiefs from advancing. And then, of course, the calls were there that the Patriots, get everything, and the NFL paid in the Super Bowl. All we've done is swap out the Patriots for the Chiefs. That's basically what's happened 5 years later. And I think that really it's just the fact that this franchise is riding high, and it's been riding high for a while. And every other franchise and the fans of every other franchise in the National Football League wants to be in that same position. They want to have a generational quarterback like Brady and like Mahomes, and, be 100% secure in that for the next decade plus. They want to be able to have one of, if not the greatest head coaches of all time in Andy Reid, and be secure in that and be able to lead that team to multiple championships. Every other franchise in America wants to have what Kansas City has. That's going to breed jealousy. It's going to breed, resentment, all of that. That's what it's going to breed and grow. And that's what's happened. And we're there right now. And as long as this success continues, I think the other thing too is that now we're at a point where the Chiefs and their fans kind of embrace it. They kind of relish in it. They're kind of like, yeah, bring it on. Like, we'll take the hate. We'll be the villains. As long as we can keep winning, as long as our franchise is still there every year, year in and year out, we're okay with that. We'll take that.
Yeah, look, I get that part of it. I do think over time it could get to that point. But what like the Chiefs, they've won 2 Super Bowls, right, in this 6-year stretch. But like they haven't even won a back-to-back Super Bowl in it. Like, yeah, they've been the most successful, and it points to the league as much as anything else. They've only won 2 of them. They've been in 3 of them. This will be the 4th. And yes, that's remarkable. But it's not like they're winning all the Super Bowls, right? They'll be the first team in forever if they can get this one done to go back to back. What will be really, really interesting is if they win this one, and we know no team has ever won 3 in a row, does that draw more people to want to see that happen? Or does it draw more people to say, we don't want this team to be the team that does that? And if people don't want this team to be the team that does that, then it's going to be hard to ever imagine a team that people want to see do it. That's the other part about this whole retirement conversation that we keep hearing with Kelsey and Reed. You mean to tell me that if the Chiefs win this game, those 2 guys aren't going to want to take a swing at that insurmountable thing of this sport, which is 3 straight Super Bowls? The Cowboys had the greatest run over a stretch. They got 3 in 4 years. They got very, very close, couldn't get it done. I think that's the best team we've seen take a swing at it, and they couldn't even get it done. If the Chiefs win this one, you're going to tell me that Kelsey and Reed don't want to come back and try to make that history? I don't see it.
Well, I didn't even see it with the thought that if they lose the game or if they get bounced early in the playoffs. Right. I've never really thought that was even a legitimate thing. And then maybe, after next weekend, we'll know. We'll know after next weekend what the plans are. I've loved having Reed in Kansas City for the last 11 years. I've loved having Travis Kelce for the last 11 years. I mean, they're tied together. I've not one time throughout this season or even the postseason been concerned that either one of them was leaving. I really haven't been, and so of course, who knows? Yeah, I think you said it yesterday, where there's smoke, there's fire, and there's been a lot of smoke, at least with Andy Reid over the last couple of weeks. I get it. I'm still not at that panic level yet.
Oh, and there's no panic. I don't believe it's going to happen. I've said that from the beginning. I just don't see how those 2 guys don't come back in any circumstance. Certainly if they win it. Maybe that's the pressure, for the Chiefs to win this game is so they do. I don't know, but it's been fun. A couple other interesting Super Bowl nuggets. The Madden simulation is complete. It has the Niners winning and Charvarius Ward as the game's MVP. He's been really good since going to San Francisco. So take that for what it's worth. I found out Tommy yesterday got Super Bowl squares, a Super Bowl square of Chiefs at 0 and Niners at 3. And I got to tell you, I'm excited about that. You get 0 and 3 in your Super Bowl squares.
Yeah.
You're cooking. You're cooking.
All
you're
Super
Bowl square connoisseur.
I've done it before. Yeah. All you're missing is, 7 and maybe 4.
Yeah.
Those are the only ones that you're probably missing.
Yeah, you want that 3 and that 0. I mean, 7 is nice too. Yeah, those are the 3 numbers. So I'm excited about that. We got the props. Of course, I don't think we can bet the props here in Kansas. Actually, I think that's one of the things that's restricted on us. But some of the props have been a whole lot of fun. It was getting read some of the Taylor Swift props about lipstick colors and whether she's wearing a hat at the game and all kinds of fun and silly stuff. Like,
isn't there a proposal prop also for Kelsey to propose
I think
to her?
One from like another country or whatever. He ain't proposing to Taylor Swift after the Super Bowl. Come on now. I mean, what have they been dating? Not even a calendar year. Like, let's come on now. They haven't even had a chance to enjoy each other in their off seasons, right? Like, they've both been in the middle of an NFL season and on the world's biggest music tour of all time. Like, let's see when they can get some actual time. Like, I can't even imagine that. Maybe that is the best way to have a relationship, right? With a future wife. Just have one where you only spend like 2 days out of the week together. I bet they don't get in a lot of fights that way. They're not arguing about toothbrush or, toilet seats or which way to hang the toilet paper probably yet. But, we'll see. But I'm excited about it. I love the Super Bowl. I love all the fanfare. I love all the silliness, all the craziness, all the stupid questions that will get asked by outrageous outlets next week. Like, I'm here for all of that. I'm a firm believer that the Monday following the Super Bowl should be a national holiday. Why not? Right? Like, it's one of the great parties of the year that the entire country participates in. I don't know that I've ever come across anybody that's just like, oh yeah, no, I'm probably not doing anything for the Super Bowl. Like, everybody watches it. Everybody watches it either for the game, obviously, for the commercials, for the halftime show. Now you've got the Taylor Swift aspect from it. It will be probably the most watched Super Bowl we've ever had in the history of Super Bowls. And I'm here for all of it. And can we just get Monday off, please? Like, who makes that call, by the way, on national holidays? I need to write an angry letter for a couple of these. One, Super Bowl Monday needs to be a national holiday. Two, why are we celebrating Halloween on anything other than a Saturday, right? Like, there are a few things we need to sort out with the national holiday, but who gets that angry letter, right? Who is the recipient? Is that a president? Like, do we have to get to the president? Is it our local elected official? Like, who do we reach out to make some of these changes that like, we're all looking for political slam dunks, right? You want to win a couple political points, go after those.
I would add one to you that I don't think the 4th of July should be in the middle of the week, although I know it's the 4th of July.
That one's important.
If you just did Independence Day and put it on a weekend.
No, that one,
there's nothing worse than a 4th of July on a Tuesday or a Wednesday.
Yeah, but that's like changing the day of Christmas. Like, there are reasons those are specific days. There's no reason for Halloween.
Okay, well then have the day after, have July 5th be a holiday as well, because you stay up late and watch the fireworks.
Well, you get the observed holiday at work, right? Like, don't you? Like, you typically
on the 4th, but not the day after.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, it'd make more sense to. Yeah, I get it. I guess I don't ever like anticipate a hangover from whatever 4th of July celebration is. Like, I and I'll probably have to work for this year's Super Bowl, so it won't be this way. But most of it, the Super Bowl is kind of a hangover holiday, right? Like, we need to adjust our hangover holidays. And New Year's Eve.
Is Halloween a hangover holiday for you?
No, but Halloween's a trick-or-treating holiday, and kids having to do that on a school night's a problem. It's a kid hangover holiday, yes, from all the candy and staying up late. Yeah. That's a kid hangover holiday for sure. And there's no significance to the date. Like, who are we going to offend if we celebrate Halloween on October 28th? We change the date of Thanksgiving every year to celebrate it on that Thursday to open up the long weekend, right? We've designed Thanksgiving that way. Nobody cares about Valentine's Day that way. Like, we need Halloween, and we need, you know what the other one is that I would also advocate to make a national holiday? This one will never happen, but opening day of Major League Baseball, right? Can we get like an official opening day that, you get like a hall pass from work or whatever, so parents can take their kids out to the ballpark and do that kind of stuff? That'd be another one I would advocate for. No, it won't, but
I would add on the first 2 days of March Madness. The fact that those are 2 working days, I don't like that either.
It's not acceptable.
That one's not going to happen either.
Most employers would agree with you because you're getting nothing out of your people those days. Like, we're here in body, but that's it. Like, nobody's paying attention to anything those days. Everybody's looking at their brackets. Everybody's on the horn, getting ready to brag that they got the first, but I got all 4 games right in the first window. Here we go, man. Like, it's going to be great. You know, that's all anybody cares about on March Madness for the first couple of days. I agree with that. Is that a hangover? Yeah, that'd qualify as a hangover holiday too. Yeah.
Yep.
That definitely, especially maybe just the Friday of, because you're not going to have a hangover Thursday morning, but I think there's a lot of folks that are definitely hungover on Friday from the opening day of March Madness. So
I think the closest thing that we got to that was when the opening rounds were here in Wichita, and it was like the city shut down. I would imagine that most places, like, you didn't work. You went downtown.
Yeah.
I've never experienced, and this is completely off topic, I've never experienced Wichita like that. That was incredible. I can't wait for that to come back next year.
It was as on display as I've ever seen the city. And yeah, it'll be back next year. And it was very unfortunate that we lost it in the COVID year. At the same time, it will allow enough time that it will be just as momentous, I think, for the city, and that everybody's going to get behind it again. Wichita's the good news for us here. Wichita's going to be in the rotation for the rest of time, right? Like, that's not going to be a problem. One, it allows for the NCAA, it allows for Kansas to play close to home, whenever it can, and that, that matters. I don't know if we'll get as good a draw as we got that first year. I mean, we were very, very fortunate. You had unreal fan bases. You had Houston, Michigan, San Diego State, and then Kansas. Like that, the draw of the fan bases was incredible for us here. And I don't know that we'll get that lucky again. But we'll get Kansas or Kansas. That'll happen a lot.
I'm going to put it on the record right now. I know we're a little over a year from that. We got to do Sports Daily live from downtown next year for those two. I mean, because it'll be leading up right to the first games of that opening window. So I'm putting that on the record right now. We're over a year from that. We got to get that set up so we can make that happen.
Jad, I need you may already know this. Are we allowed to drink beer on the air?
I think the two of you might be able to. There's no way I can.
Okay.
Yeah. Nobody would ever know.
Isn't there some CNN anchor who gets like hammered every year on the New Year's broadcast?
Well, I don't think he works for CNN anymore. I think he got fired.
Who did? Don Lemon?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
He's gone.
When did he get fired? But Anderson Cooper also indulges on the New Year's broadcast, right?
Okay.
Maybe not. I don't know. Yeah, that'd be a good reason not to. But like if we can get down there and get in on the festivities, maybe. Yeah,
I'm in. Let's make that happen.
Fun. Well, on our sister station, our very own Guy Bauer of The Good Life, he tests wine from every now and then. So
we'll see. There you go.
Yeah.
Does he have to spit it out when he tests the wine?
I don't think so. No.
It's a waste of wine.
We went to a vineyard, my dad, my brother, and I, and we're talking about like, the Clampets in Northern California. Like we go to this vineyard and we like people are spitting out their wine, and I'm looking over. I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not spitting that out. Like, they're giving us free wine. Like, what are we doing here? I guess it's one way or the other. I don't know.
As long as I have the ability to shut your microphones off, I think you guys could probably best not to overindulge, but yeah.
Well, it's not
always a good lesson in life. But yeah, you might have to be a little quick trigger on the delay button a little more than normal. Not like we don't keep you on our toes anyway. I think we do that. That's part of the fun. Keep Jad on his toes. The callers certainly do that. Gary also chimes in on Kelsey, by the way. And this is interesting. He says some people in Kansas City are not that fond of Kelsey. He lives there. I would venture to guess, Gary, that you were in the vast minority on that. Like there was a poll, and we ran this the other day in the newscast just because, everyone's having fun with all the silliness. There was a poll on what NFL player would you want to have as a neighbor? And do you know now who polled higher than Patrick Mahomes? Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce has become the league's biggest celebrity, he was always, sort of like a small time slot. He's in every commercial. When was the last time a non-quarterback did this, Tommy? Like Travis Kelce's popularity is soaring, and it was before Taylor Swift. It is now, obviously, with Taylor Swift, but he's hosting SNL. And a lot of that is coattailing Mahomes, and they have fun with that at times. But I don't think there's very many people that don't enjoy Travis Kelce. This podcast they have now, I mean, it is the simplest. Like, it's not this insane production value. It's not, but it's still so much fun to listen to because you've got these two brothers just, yucking it up. I think it's better than the Manning cast. And I haven't watched much of the Manning cast, and it's not anything against the Mannings. It's just that I'd rather watch the football game. But I don't know. I think that he's as likable a character as the NFL has, period, right now. Like, Nick Bosa is a guy that I think most people don't like, and the Bosa, but like they're kind of the villain, bad guys, whatever. I don't know. I could be wrong on this. I think Kelsey's trash talk is endearing. I think we kind of like it.
I wouldn't call him, I don't think likable is the right word, although I think he is, but I don't think I think
you're talking about from the general public standpoint.
Yeah, I think he's popular. I think there's a difference between being popular and being likable. I don't think that he's like this lovable teddy bear that, I think Jason is, his brother is. I'm not sure Travis is. Like, Travis is the high school jock. They got the cheerleader. Like, that's basically there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean that I think he's a unlikable guy. I'm just not sure that that's the first word I would use to describe him.
Maybe I'm off on that. I could be wrong. I would guess that he's one of the most likable players in the NFL. And they've cast themselves a little bit more of the villain role this year, but that's the chip on the shoulder thing. We'll see. We're getting closer.
The most negative adjective I can think of might be, I don't know, meathead.
But it's fully embraced, right? Like his brother calls him the Yeti. Like
I don't know. I think Gronkowski was more of the meathead, dumb jock, kind of guy.
Yeah,
that's a little bit different.
Question.
Gronk is different than Kelce is.
Gronk embraces it too. Gronk was also likable for that reason. But yes, I that's a good one. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll come back. KU this weekend, that game against Houston, just a massive, massive test for them at home. How must win is it? I'm going back and forth on that. We'll get into it when we return on Sports Daily.
Sports Daily is on KFH.
Welcome back into Sports Daily. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor here with you on this Friday. All right, so Houston and Kansas, premier game of the weekend. There's a lot of really good ones this weekend, by the way, but this is as good or better than any of them, I would say, and we're biased to that, of course. But I look at it and I'm trying to decide whether I think this is must win. I think there. So Kansas sits right now one game back of Houston in the Big 12 standings. If they lose, they would only be 2 games back of Houston in the Big 12 standings. So I don't know that I would call it must win. The other part of that is Houston going to, how many losses is Houston going to have in the league, right? Let's say Houston wins and they sit at 2 losses. Are they going to fall to 5 or 6 losses? Does any team, and I think that becomes the question, can any team in the Big 12 run this thing through where they only have like 3 or 4 losses? Houston may be the most likely to be able to do that, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think we'll either get to 5 like we did last year, Tommy, or maybe it gets even higher this year. And so what makes me think it's not must win yet for Kansas.
I don't think 3 is likely, but I do think 4 could happen. And if it is going to be 4, it's probably going to be Houston.
If it's 4, they gotta win this game for sure. I just don't know if I think it's going to be 4, and that's where I get in. Like, try just to be predictive. Again, none of this really matters for the NCAA tournament, but just like I don't know, like, is Houston that dominant? Are they that good? Because I think they'd be the most likely to do it if a team's going to do it. Texas Tech's not going to do it. I don't think Iowa State's going to do it. I've told you before, TCU's kind of this team that I've got my eye on as a, and it's not that they're a dark horse, but they should have beat Kansas. They kind of got hosed in that deal. I think Houston's the most likely if a team's going to do it, and I just don't know that I think that they're good enough for that. And I think they're great. They may be my national championship pick when push comes to shove at the end of the year. Are they really going to run through this gauntlet with only 1 or 2 more losses? That just seems like that's too much of a challenge for anybody.
Yeah, I think that one of the keys to the game for the Jayhawks tomorrow is to do everything that they can to limit LJ Cryer. They are familiar with Cryer. Of course, Cryer played at Baylor for a number of years, so the Jayhawks have faced him before. And Cryer's been really good this season, except in the 2 conference losses that Houston has against Iowa State and TCU. In those 2 games, Cryer scored 5 points in each game, and he was 2 of 13 combined from 3 in both of those games. And so if the Jayhawks can limit him, then at that point, he's a direct correlation to his performance and how well the Cougars do. So they're going to have to do defensively a good job on him to have a better shot to win that game. But on the flip side, we know how great of a defensive team Houston is. And so they've got to find creative ways to try to disrupt that defense that Houston brings to the table. I would imagine that Houston is going to down as they are every game. And so, Bill Self is going to have to, and I'm sure he already has, draw up good ideas and strategies to get around that defense that Houston plays.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's the challenge for anybody. It's what makes Kelvin Sampson so successful is his ability to coach defense. I mean, you're looking at 2 of the more brilliant defensive minds head to head for this first time. I love this game. We don't have the lines out on it yet. So we don't know the over-under. We don't know the spread. I suspect Kansas will be a slight, very small favorite, and that it'll be a very low total. But we don't have that yet. We'll get it in the morning. It's what's wild about it is if it's felt like it's sort of slipping away for Kansas, there's absolutely a scenario where they're in first place in the Big 12 by Sunday, right? If they can beat Houston, if Iowa State falls in Waco to Baylor, and if Cincinnati goes on the road and beats Texas Tech, there you go. Like that's when I look at those kinds of things, I think that's what, for me, it's like, I don't know who's going to come out on top. I think it's going to be a jumbled mess. I don't think any one team, I've said that for a few weeks now, I don't think there will be an outright winner. I think in some combination, we'll have at least 2 teams up there. I think it could be more than 2. I think it could be 3 or 4. I mean, honestly, like, and I haven't done the math on the schedules to see how that plays out. I just think there are so many teams in this league that are so close. Like I can't even tell you as simple as who do I think the best team in the league is, not who's going to finish on target. Like, who do I think the best team in the Big 12 is? I can't even answer that. I have no idea.
Well, I think tomorrow will tell you really a lot about that. Honestly,
it will,
when it's all
but will
said
it? Like,
and
are
done.
you gonna? No matter if maybe if one team dominates the other, we would say okay. But in any other outcome, are we really going to step away? Like, if Houston loses in Lawrence, are we going to step away and be like, oh, it's definitively Kansas now? No, Houston had to go play in Lawrence.
It depends on how it all turns out.
That's what I said. If it's a blowout, that's one thing. I don't think that's going to happen. But
one thing to keep in mind that is just, it's crazy, just the dominance of Bill Self at home. There have been 13 games inside Allen Fieldhouse in Bill Self's career where KU, it's a top 10 matchup, but KU is the lower ranked team.
Yep.
Bill Self is 13-0 in those games in top 10 matchups at home when the Jayhawks are the lower ranked team. They're number 8. Houston is number 4. Bill Self has never lost one of those games before. It's just, it's wild. That's crazy, to have that streak. The other thing about Houston that I think is really important is we know how locked down they are defensively. That's their calling card. They're very aggressive, but what they do is when they're aggressive, they get fouls called on them. And I would think, especially inside Allen Fieldhouse, the Jayhawks are going to get to the line tomorrow. I'd bet, money on that the Jayhawks will get to the line quite a bit tomorrow because number one, it's in Allen Fieldhouse. And number two, because we know that Houston plays really aggressive defense. If Kansas can make their free throws, that may be the difference maker in this game when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I mean, totally. They could also lock Houston down and it just gets so ugly that they're in good shape. There's a billion different ways I could see that game going. I mean, really, like I'm going to have a hard time betting it because I just don't know how to bet it. I would bet Kansas shows up in a big way. I'll tell you that. I don't think they're going to let us down for this one. I don't even know. I don't think we're 100% clear on Kevin McCullough yet.
Yeah,
I suspect
that
he'll play. But I mean, if Kevin McCullough's not playing, and that's the thing too. So let's say Houston beats Kansas by 8 points, but it was without McCullough. Does that really change your opinion on anything? I don't think it does for me. If Kansas came out and won by 16 without McCullough, then maybe I'm like, oh, okay, like now we're finding our groove here. But I just don't think those things are going to happen. And we'll continue to have this exercise over the next month because we're just not going to know. I don't think there's any team in this league that's gonna do enough to run away with it. I think up until the last game of the regular season, this thing will be undecided and open. I think it's going to be a tie at the top. I don't even know what the tiebreakers are. Don't really care. But what's so fun about it and what's been so fun about it is, like, as we look around college basketball, of these, like, tell me which of these teams you could absolutely say you don't think is capable of going to a Final Four. Houston, Iowa State, Kansas, TCU, Baylor. I think undoubtedly those teams could make that case. I think you could add Texas Tech. I think they've done enough to this point. Again, I haven't seen BYU, but just based on the metrics, you'd be crazy to say they couldn't get to that point. We know Texas has the talent. I don't think I would put them in that conversation. I would not put Kansas State in that conversation. And I don't think I'd put Oklahoma in that conversation, but that may be a shame on me thing. Maybe Oklahoma is that. But we're talking about legitimately 7 or 8 of these teams that you can see in the Final Four. Like, they are good enough where you're like, oh, yeah, I could see that.
I mean, I would probably, if it were me, I'd probably take Iowa State out. I don't think that Iowa State is a great shooting team. And so that might be something that flaws them down the stretch. So I would take Iowa State out if it were me. I think Iowa State can make a run in the tournament. I'm not sure they're a Final Four team.
But Kansas isn't a great shooting team either.
Yeah, but Kansas has other ways that they make that up. I don't know. I probably wouldn't in my Final Four conversation. I would put Baylor in that conversation as well to be a Final Four team this season with their talent. Again, I think they could be.
It's just Scott Drew.
Yeah. And Scott Drew has gotten them all the way. So that's a benefit of the doubt type thing for Baylor. I'm just not sure that the talent that they've got this season would take them all the way to a Final Four. But other than that, I mean, yeah, TCU is going to be a really tough out in the tournament. They may be on that fringe of a team that you could maybe envision going that far. But other than that, I mean, yeah, Kansas, Houston, BYU, those teams are there. I like Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma is a really good basketball team. And that's something that, they may fly under the radar, and they have this entire season so far. That may continue into the tournament where not a lot of people are picking them to go deep, but quietly, Porter Mosier's put together a really good basketball squad.
TCU, here's an intro. I just pulled this up. So TCU you can get 19-1 right now to be a Big 12 regular season winner. What's wild about the Big 12? So think about that. Remember, 19-1 to win the Big 12. You know what they are to win the national championship?
25-1, 30-1,
20-1. 20-1.
Wow.
You almost get the exact same odds for them to win the national championship as you do to win the Big 12.
What does that tell you about the Big 12? I mean, I think that tells you all you need to know about the Big 12.
So it tells me that I think there's going to be a tie at the top. It tells me how difficult it's going to be for any one of these teams. So not only do you have to be, good enough to win enough, but you have to be good enough that some other team doesn't also sit there at the top. That's what the crazy thing is. Like, if that doesn't explain, like, that lays it out perfectly. TCU, according to the odds, is just as likely to win a national championship as it is to win the Big 12. That's crazy. That is wild. Let me pull up Kansas real quick just to see if the same dynamic exists here.
It tells me you can put any team outside of the Big 12 in that conference. They're going to lose basketball games. I mean, it's by far the best basketball conference in America.
All right, so yeah, that dynamic only exists with TCU because to win the Big 12, Kansas is at 7.5 to 1. To win the national championship, they're 30 to 1. So that doesn't exist for every team, but it does for TCU, who I want to throw a dart at them to win the Big 12. I don't know why. I have this feeling. I don't know. I liked them a lot last year too, and it's probably just carryover from that. But it's fun. We love it. God, it's been a blast to watch and we're like halfway through it. It's going to be even better down the stretch. Some of these teams are going to get really good, and some of them will probably fall a little flat. We'll continue Sports Daily when we return. Albracht and Castor, your calls on the KFH hotline, 869-1240. Don't go away. All right, welcome back in to Sports Daily. Tommy, I'm curious about this. This is a total curveball. Are you an energy shot connoisseur? Like, you an energy shot guy?
An energy shot or an energy drink?
Yeah, like the little, like no, the energy
No.
shots.
I've never
You're
done the
not.
shots before. No.
Are you an energy drink person?
Yeah, I've got one.
Got one right now. Yeah. So I am not an energy drink person. I do the energy shots. Like, I can count like a Red Bull if I'm dying in Vegas. Like, I don't do the energy drinks, but I really enjoy the energy shots because, you know, you can be done with it. They're too sweet. I don't like to play. We're about to unroll some energy shots. I think they should get in stores here today, but they're tea based. And I'm really curious about that. I just like offhand, because I was dealing with something else during the commercial break. And the reason I ask is there's been a lot of chatter. So a lot of people are trying them and they're like, I don't know. I've never been an energy shot person. I'm like, well, have you ever had an energy shot? They're intense. So I'm excited to try those tonight when they get into the store.
I've tried to. Yeah. The older I've gotten, I've tried to wean off the energy as much as I can. Like, I feel every once in a while,
energy drinks though. Yeah.
Drink. Like, I'll drink. I try to drink more coffee now. I mean, I have to have caffeine. So I'm trying to drink coffee than anything else. But every once in a while, I'll grab an energy drink. I know they're super unhealthy and probably doing more harm than good.
Yeah, try a shot. They're not unhealthy. From my everything, ours won't be because they're tea based. But even some of the others are. I don't think like they're. It really does pack it in. So I have found myself as I get older needing so I have coffee in the morning, right? And I need just, I've reached the age where I fall asleep in the middle of the day, right? Where like you sit down and you just pass out. And my wife swears I have narcolepsy. And I'm like, honey, like this happens to every man on the planet. Like I have reached. So like I find myself all the time in the middle of the day. I'm like, I got to have something here. I can't, like, I gotta power through. And so I do those. I'm curious to see those tonight.
Yeah, guys, I'm a step or so.
Go ahead, Jed.
I'm a step or so older than you guys. So it was about the time I got your guys' age that I gave up energy drinks entirely.
Yeah.
I really kind of had to at that point. And even now, even the shots aren't something I can go for even now. The tea thing I'm interested in.
Yeah, try one. Let me know. And I have not tried them yet. They arrive literally tonight. So I will try. And I know I've been excited about this for a long time. I haven't really been able to talk about it. I can now because they'll literally be in the store in a little bit. But I've been because I am a connoisseur of those things. And like, so I'm like, heck yeah, let's go. Some people have said like they're really good if you just pour it into your tea, which makes sense.
Yeah.
So
I would drink, like, I'll go a day and have, 2 or 3 cups of coffee in the morning and then just drink iced tea throughout the rest of the day.
Yeah. So you get like a slow and steady fix of it.
Yeah. And I'm an unsweet iced tea guy. I don't.
Me too.
I don't want sugar in it. I don't need flavoring. I like literally just give me the plain unsweet iced tea, and I'm good to go.
Well, that's what people ask me. They always say when they're like, "What's your favorite?" I'm like, "Unsweet iced tea, like the unsweet regular tea." And they're like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's delicious. It's amazing."
Here's a question I got to ask you though, Jacob, because it seems like you would be for this in one way and against it in another way. So it's just one word I got to throw out there to see if HTO has any plans. The word is kombucha.
No, the word from us would be no. At least from anything I've ever gathered, that's not our wheelhouse.
The thing is, it is
iced
tea.
No, I know, and boba and all that stuff. No, there are other people that do that really, really well. I personally don't have any interest in it. I don't think there's any interest at a higher up level. Like we're laser focused on being the best at iced tea, just like regular old, iced tea.
All right.
So no, I don't think so. Of course, never say never. I'm not at the authority to say that, but I don't believe so. I intended here, and we have a couple minutes, Tommy. LeBron James now, there are rumors that the Lakers would like to trade him, which is interesting and makes sense. I get it. I don't know that he'll want to be traded at this stage in his life. We'll see. But there's a team that would be really interesting that would obviously have a lot of interest for us. Boy, Oklahoma City would make a ton of sense, wouldn't it? They've got all kinds of draft capital. They are so flippin' loaded, so good. Like, you want to talk about a bunch of local TV stations, including KWCH, got the broadcast rights to some Oklahoma City Thunder games. So like their Friday games air on the KSCW now. And I'm like, this timing for these local TV stations. Could you imagine if LeBron James was playing the rest of the season in Oklahoma City?
I can imagine it. It doesn't look like it's going to happen. Rich Paul, his agent, just said today that he's not being traded. He's not going to request a trade.
So whether or not, no, I think that the report out of LA, and it was from a reporter there, that the Lakers would like to trade him. I don't know that I don't think LeBron would like to be traded. He's a family man now. That's why he's in LA, I think, to begin with, his son and all these things.
Doesn't he have, he's got to have a no trade clause. I mean, I'm sure that's
he's got a, I'll do whatever I want clause. Like, yes, he can do anything he wants. And again, maybe it'll become a topic for another day. I've got no issue with guys being like, nah, I'm not doing that. Like, I know some people are like, oh, that's so selfish or whatever. I'm like, no. Put yourself in that situation. I cannot imagine right now somebody saying, hey, we need you to go and go work the next 6 months in Atlanta. Be like, what? No, I'm not doing that. Like, my family's here. So I get it. I totally get it. We hold that. And I get it. They're millionaires. You go do it. If somebody offered me $1 million, maybe I would do it. I don't know. Maybe my wife would kick me out the door. I mean, who knows? But we'll see. That'll be a story to follow next week, though, because if there's any team in position to do it, it'd be the Thunder. They got all kinds of draft picks, and they are good right now at the highest level. We'll come back. We'll wrap up Sports Daily. Busy day on the networks this weekend. We'll tell you about it next. All right, welcome back in, everybody. That's it for us. It's a busy network weekend for us. Let's take you to tomorrow because it's regular programming today. 3 things to keep your eye on. 11 o'clock in the morning, pregame coverage begins on that game in Memphis for Wichita State. That one's over on KEYN. We'll see if the Shockers can do something special in front of a national audience. The timing would be perfect for that. 12 o'clock, K-State basketball at Oklahoma State. That one's right here on KFH. And then over on KNSS at 3:45, you'll have Butler basketball taking on Coffeyville. Tommy, I don't know what we'll do with all the free time of no football for the first time in a while this weekend, but enjoy.
I don't know. It should be fun. Yeah, we'll see him on Monday.
There goes Tommy Castor. For Jad Chambers, I'm Jacob Albracht. See you then.
Sports, later news, and